Hi everyone and welcome back to the Aqua Pod, Scottish Swimming's podcast. I'm your host Charlie and today we've got a really special show for you with new Scottish Swimming CEO John Lunn appearing on the podcast. We discuss his swimming journey, his career to date, including being the first member of staff at Triathlon Scotland, and his ambitions for the Scottish aquatic community. Hopefully you enjoy the episode. Delighted to finally have you on the podcast. Thought I'd give you a few weeks to kind of settle in and get your bearings first. But how have things been for you, John, in the first couple of weeks?
Well, week 7, so not waited long. It's been interesting. I've enjoyed it. It's definitely been a change. Nice to actually get to spend a bit of time with people and get to know the staff team and deliberately making an effort to try and get in touch with the wider community and those in clubs, because they're the people that make the sport happen and deal with everything day in, day out. So we're just really here to make their lives a bit easier. So trying to now get a bit of a plan to get out and about, meet some people, and I've done some of that online, and we've got a plan in the next few months to start getting around some different swim meets and different opportunities to see more people face to face. But it's been enjoyable so far, trying to get my head around what I need to do and also what needs done and who I need to meet, and just being visible, I guess, which is always exciting when you're in a new job because you don't know most of the people and you're just kind of getting your head around that. Although there are some people scarily I do know and I've known for a long time. But
I can imagine. Yeah, it's a big community but also small in some senses, isn't it? And I guess it must be difficult coming in and going, oh, where do I start? Because there's so many different places you could start, isn't there?
There is, and it's just the starting point for me is what do I need to know, and as I say, being accessible and visible with people, and then what is it I need to be doing, and it's just getting that balance right. So I'm probably in the space at the moment where I'm working out just what it is I need to be doing, because I'm getting my head around some of what I need to know, and definitely not assuming I know lots coming in. There's some things I do know, and I know more about some stuff than others, as you would expect in any kind of new job. You have an understanding of some of it but not all of it. And there's no skeletons falling out any cupboards or any horrors under the carpet so far, or if there is, nobody's shown me or told me, so it's all positive.
But I thought what we'd do is we'd maybe start with your background in swimming. So you were a club swimmer yourself at Cumbernauld, and did some volunteering and things like that as well. Do you want to maybe just kind of go through your sort of relationship to swimming? And
Yeah, it is quite a long one. So in terms of my background, like most people of an age, I came through Learn to Swim, because Learn to Swim was part of what you did at school. So it would be, I can't even remember what age it would be, but early primary school. I remember going to getting the Learn to Swim sessions through the school, and the new pool as it was then in Cumbernauld, because I was actually there when the Queen opened it. I was in the class that was in the pool when she came onto the balcony and waved to people. So I've got that distinct memory, age about 7 or 8, of seeing the Queen while we were all in our swimming trunks and costumes in the water. And the teacher for that was a chap called Bill Douglas, who a lot of people might know. He actually only passed away last year, he's age 96, but he was the teacher for the Learn to Swim lessons, and he was also one of the club coaches. And after that, he was encouraging the kids that had learned to swim to come along and try out for the club or get involved in the club. Club still ran Learn to Swim in very early swimmer groups at that point as well. So I got involved, started off swimming widths in the club, as you do, across the pool, and just worked my way through and ended up in the senior squad with some people that swam in Commonwealth Games and Olympics. People like Jean Hill and Brian Archibald and Maureen Campbell, among others.
Of course.
I was never at the level they were at. I was a squad swimmer. I could make national finals occasionally, that kind of level, but really enjoyed it. And as I say, worked my way through the squads as a youngster and made lots of friends, people that are still friends and people I know and have kept in touch with and still do today. So that's kind of set me up in some respects. I've got people that I swam with and got to know then that have remained part of my life right through all of that. But also alongside that, my mum, as most swimming parents do, my mum used to ferrying us up and down and coming on the bus to get us to training and getting us home and stuff. So she would hang about. She got inevitably roped in. She became a timekeeper, so she did a bit of timekeeping before electronic timekeeping, when it was everybody was on stopwatches. So she did a bit of that, and she was the club treasurer for 7 years as well. So, and she also did the chaperoning when we would go away to meets and you needed a responsible parent to stop everybody causing carnage on the bus sort of thing. So she did all of that, and when we were away for weekends or we swam at West Districts and things, she would do all that as well. So my mum did all that, probably for, I don't know, I think she was treasurer for 7 years and was involved in the club for about 15. Towards the end of my own swimming time, as I moved into adulthood, I then did the teacher's qualification, so became a swimming teacher for the club and also did my coaching badges, as you would call them at that point. So Wynne Hayes was one of my tutors. Alan Lunn was one of my tutors. I can't remember who tutored me for what, but they're people that I still know, familiar faces and around the sport even today. So I then taught and coached swimming at Cumbernauld for a number of years, right into my 20s. And that kind of gave me confidence and life skills and a bit of discipline that I hope impacted me as I moved into the wide world of work and other things. So it definitely set me up and gave me a confidence and some skills that I still use to this day. So I then moved on. While I was still swimming, I started to get, not swimming, while I was still coaching and teaching, I started to get involved in triathlon. So this would have been late 80s, early 90s that triathlon was just arriving in the UK, and got involved with the governing body there. There was no qualifications. I was involved as they would call it a performance athlete then, but this is pre-lottery days, but effectively what you were was you were a blocky amateur. You paid your way and you went and you raced, and you could maybe make some money, but you needed to have a job. So I was part of the performance set up there, and because of my coaching and teaching background, I did all the video analysis and did all the swimming sessions for the squad as well, because I had a background in that in the early days, so I helped kind of get the sport established and do a bit of racing. At the same time, raced in different places across the world, represented Scotland and UK a few times. Again, not the best athlete by any stretch, but I was of a decent standard. And then lottery money came in the early noughties for triathlon, and I got offered the opportunity to go full time as a triathlete. The money involved wouldn't pay the mortgage, and there was definitely better athletes a lot younger than me who were able to take advantage of that. So that was before Manchester Commonwealth Games, where triathlon appeared for the first time. I would have been in my 30s at that point, so I realised that actually I would be more effective as a team manager rather than as an athlete. So I went to Manchester Commonwealth Games as the volunteer team manager for triathlon, and that was a role I repeated for Glasgow as well. I managed to pick the 2 home gigs to be the team manager. Somebody else got the sunny ones in Australia and
it's always elsewhere. The way, isn't
it? Yeah. So I didn't get the good travel gigs. I got the local gigs, so to speak. So I did that as well. And from a work perspective, I went into the chemical and distribution industry working in accountancy. So that was my background. But I still maintained my interest, whether it be in triathlon, volunteering to do the coaching at squads, doing video analysis for the swimming side of it, being a team manager for triathlon, and just helping progress the sport in Scotland, to the point where 2005 triathlon got their first paid member of staff, and I was at a point in my life where I could afford to take that chance and make that jump. So I became, they called it the National Development Manager. I was the only member of staff at that point, and based ourselves at Stirling Uni, managed to negotiate a desk space there and then eventually get an office space there, and loved my time in triathlon, working there for 5 years, helping grow and develop the governing body. At the time I left, there was a staff of 8, I think, at that point, so it was getting reasonable. We had some development staff, we had a coaching person, some coaches, etc, just that kind of traditional growth model you would see within a governing body. And at that point left, that was 2009, went to Sport Scotland and did a couple of roles there, was involved in coaching and volunteering. Team initially helped to set up and fund some of the UKCC qualification models that were in at that point. And then eventually ended up heading up what we called the governing body and the regional performance delivery network. So I had responsibility for all the governing body investment. It was also, although I had a senior role, because swimming was a big sport, I was the partnership manager for Scottish Swimming at Sport Scotland for about 3 years. Back then, working with Ashley Howard and Richard Gordon and Ali White, who had been around forever even then. And then also worked with Forbes when he was the chief exec, and then laterally Ewan Lowe as well. So kind of kept through all that time still quite a close link with, I guess, swimming and the aquatics community, and that kind of then went full circle when this opportunity came up, and I decided to come back. So that's a wee bit of my journey, if you like. And
a bit of a whistle-stop tour, I guess. Your journey then into the sport seems quite normal then, and into a club environment, quite a small club. Cumbernauld, a relatively small club.
It is now. Back then it was probably quite big, because they had what they called the groups, where you swam across the pool, which was just a bit more than learn to swim, and then you had the squads. But structures now is a different size. They don't run all that now. But
your journey into the sport was through quite a sort of traditional, and as a result you have that connection, don't you, that a lot of people listening, a lot of our members will have as well. It's a familiar story of parents being involved in volunteering roles, and yourself going into coaching and things like that. It's quite, and almost that's quite a good connection, I guess, to have for the role.
I think so, and it just felt natural in what you did. There was a bit of, I'd benefited from the sport and from the club, so this was an opportunity to put more back and do a bit of swim teaching for them, do a bit of coaching with them as well. It wasn't a tough ask, it just felt like that's what you did, and it was, and the club were always really supportive, whether that was Danny McGowan, who was the head coach, or some of the coaches I had further down, that I think some of them are still involved today. I remember doing some stuff with Andy Figgins, who's coached at East Kilbride, and there was Alex Beaton, who was one of the lower level coaches. I think ended up coaching at Mulgine Bearsden for a number of years. So you keep these connections with people, and you form those friendships, and whilst you commit quite a lot of time, it doesn't feel like a chore, but it doesn't mean you're not valued. You're definitely valued and appreciated, and I think in this role that's something I see and recognise, because I've done that as a young person, and come through as a swimmer, and then given back, I guess, with some of my own volunteering or time commitment back the way, and just don't underestimate the scale and the value that provides to the community at large.
Absolutely. You've obviously been part of triathlon. You were the first member of staff, as you said, then been at Sports Scotland for a number of years, in a couple of different roles. How do you think those different roles have helped shape you as a person, and then also kind of coming into your time here as well? What are maybe a couple of the key learnings that you've had, or key moments that kind of stick out to you?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think what I've continuously seen within sport is it's a privilege to get to do a job like this and work in sport. That's the first thing. Not many people get to do something that pretty much everybody else does as a spare time thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there have definitely been moments where I've been, back of a taxi cab or in a lift, you're randomly chatting to somebody and they say, "What do you do?" And they tell them that you work in sport, and they say, "Wow, do people get paid to do that?" So they're kind of pinch yourself moments where it is a privilege, and it's a pleasure to do it. And I'm just always amazed and impressed by the commitment and the passion of people that are in sport, whether that's volunteers or technical officials or coaches or staff members. Everybody really cares about what they do. Everybody's here. It's more than a job, right? I get we've all got bills to pay, and people need to make a living out of stuff, but also people are really committed to it and go above and beyond all the time, every day. And we don't always agree about things, but that's okay. But people are coming at it from a genuine position of they really care about what they do, and in particular they care about the people that we impact on. Swimming's more than just a sport. We're teaching safety, we're giving people life skills, we're creating lifelong friendships. It's more than just going in and splashing up and down the pool, or diving off a diving board, or wrestling with people in water polo, or whatever it is. There's a lot more to it than the actual activity piece, and I think the people that are involved really care about that, and I've seen that right through my time in Sports Scotland or involved in governing bodies in different roles, is that people really care about what they do. I haven't just done this as a paid professional role. I've tutored, I've helped develop qualifications, I've coached, I've taught. I've done all the volunteering bits as well as doing it for a day job, and I see that here. A lot of the staff, they don't just do what they do as a day job, they're involved in the clubs and the community as well, so that's a nice thing. It feels like a family in some respects.
And I think that's quite good what you said as well. Even if people come from different perspectives, everyone's got that love of the sport, don't they, or the love of their club, and it really everyone is heading in the same direction. It's just sometimes you might disagree, but that's really healthy, isn't it?
I think that's okay. It's okay to disagree. We've just got to listen. We might not always, we might not choose to take it all on board and move everything forward the way people want, but we've got to always listen to what people think and what people are seeing and what people are, listen to people's views and opinions, particularly on a sport where we're quite a large sport, but we're not a large governing body. The sport doesn't happen because of the 35 or so staff we've got here. We can facilitate that and help it. It happens because of the thousands of coaches, officials, swimmers, volunteers that make it all happen day in, day out. I certainly see myself as just a custodian. My job's to move the sport on and hopefully leave it in a better place for the next person and the next group of people in terms of staff and board members, etc. I'm not the sport. The sport's everybody else.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. Kind of touched on it a little bit already, but you're in a really good position at Sport Scotland, a big job probably, being the sports development head. What sort of attracted you to the job of CEO at this time? I know you've got that connection, but there must have been something that you thought, I can really make a difference here, or really attracted you to the position.
Yeah, some of it is timing. You can never say the timing's right. I'd always thought, if I wanted to go back to a sport and got the opportunity, swimming would be the one I would go back to. Despite what I did in triathlon, I don't mean that in a negative way. I've got lots of positive experiences there, but I've been involved and connected to swimming since I was 7. 50 years. Yeah. I know people who were involved 50 years ago that are still involved today. So if there was a sport that attracted me and that could attract me or I would be interested in, this was always going to be the one. There's an element of symmetry here because I see this as an opportunity, I hope, to take the experience, what I've learned, what my connection is to the sport, and bring it back and maybe add some value and help make a positive contribution. So there's a nice circularity to that because, being really blunt, I'm not doing this for a career move. I don't have an ego that's saying, well, the next step is to move into that job, or here's what I want to improve my profile. I hope my next step is I get to retire, but I hope to do that having taken 50 years of experience and exposure and maybe what I've learned through different roles I've done and different working experiences I've got, and maybe bring some of that back and help improve and add to a sport that gave me so much and helped me a lot in more ways than I could ever imagine. It's only now when I look back I can see how I was helped along the way, or where I learned some things from swimming or from people I was involved in that helped me at later times. It was never necessarily planned or designed that way, but that's what happened, and I'm acutely aware of that I'm the person I am today largely because of some of the inputs and impacts swimming had on me, particularly when I was younger. So maybe I can add a bit of that back and bring some of those back to benefit others and benefit the sport more widely, and leave it in good place.
You've obviously been here 7 weeks now, as you said. You must be really excited now to get out and meet as many people as possible, go to competitions, visit clubs as you'll be doing. What are you most looking forward to, I guess, and what have your kind of first impressions been of some of those moments so far?
I'm really looking forward to getting out and meeting people. I've done some stuff online. I've joined a club chairs session. There was 50 odd chairs from clubs there. I've been on I think it's the quarterly committees chairs meeting as well. So I've met them. I've met some people who've reached out to me directly because people are always eager to come and tell you what they think.
Yeah, of course.
And at the moment, I'm quite I'm happy to listen, and I definitely am coming in at the moment with 2 ears, 1 mouth. Yeah. Listen to people, engage with people, and take people as I find them and at face value and form my own opinions. In that, so getting out, I think we're out at the Dolan, assuming it opens after its refurb at the weekend, so we're going to a district meet there, hopefully meet some people and some people from clubs and swimmers and coaches, and go and meet them in their environment. Is the right thing to do.
Isn't it?
We've got a couple of weeks doing a trip up to Gary and Forres. I'm in Aberdeen tomorrow. Going to meet some of the clubs there while I'm up tomorrow and Wednesday. I'm just really looking forward to getting to meet people. Before I started, I went to the board meeting. The board kindly invited me along just as an observer in December, and that was at the Commonwealth Pool. At the end of the meeting, I politely excused myself because I wanted to go and watch some swimming. So I'm actually quite keen to watch and see some swimming as well, along with some of the other sports if I get the chance. I know we've got some opportunities set up where I'll go along and see some of the other sports as well, because above all else, I'm a fan as well. I do want to watch some swimming. So so getting a chance to meet people and chat to them and hear what's going on from their perspective will be really useful. And I guess part of it for me is that, I get there's things that we can maybe improve on, or things where people and different clubs need help. I can only do something about that if people tell me. I'm not a mind reader. Equally, be mindful that I can't solve everything, and we as an organisation can't solve everything, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't be listening and engaging with people. And that's definitely a bit of the next phase for me, is engaging with as many people as I can, going to meet and see them, and actually maybe watch a bit of swimming and some of the other sports at the same time as well.
It's good that you mentioned that, because I think sometimes that's lost, isn't it? That actually, what we do is really, really exciting. We're putting on really exciting events with world-class athletes, and actually it's good to sometimes take a step back and go, wow, this person was in an Olympic final and now they're in our competition in one of our partners' pools, and we're watching it in front of our eyes, right? Aye,
and we do have amazing athletes in our sport, right across the field. So it would be a shame to go to some of these and not actually take a little moment just to watch all the effort and all the hard work, as well as going, as I say, I'm up in Aberdeen tomorrow, so we'll maybe see some of the training squads and stuff as well. I definitely want to be somebody that is seen and is accessible, and early on it's important that I'm accessible and invisible for people, so before the inbox and the diary gets too busy.
Of course, as I'm sure it will. You spoke there a little bit about things that are maybe going to be difficult, and things. The sport is in a difficult place from some perspectives. There's issues around about facilities, threats to pool time, threats around about closures. We're pushing for school swimming to be on the curriculum, things like that. What do you see as maybe some of the bigger challenges, to the sport at this moment in time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there is the obvious ones you've touched on, is the pool estate. It is under threat. We have an ageing estate there. We need to look at how do we effectively keep that open and make sure it's used and utilised properly. Otherwise, there's no point in having pools if they're not useful and the community don't use them. Pool access and costs of access, running costs, staff retention, volunteer time. People are just time poor. These days. They have less time available just with pressures from family and work and other things. All of these, just whole life challenges are there for everybody, and there for our sport as well. I think there are bigger opportunities though as well, because we are more than a sport. We are a life skill. We do contribute more than that. We're also a gateway sport. If you learn to swim, it opens up opportunities in so many other ways for other sports or other activities. If you can swim, then things like sailing or paddleboarding or other,
even your own pathway,
even triathlon. They're only doable and achievable if you can learn to swim. I do believe it is it's a physical literacy piece that everybody should get the opportunity to swim. More than just the basics around running, jumping, throwing, catching. I think swimming should be regarded as that as well. And then there's the other piece we shouldn't lose sight of, is that if you learn to swim when you're younger, it's so much easier to keep physically active when you're older, because it's a non-weight bearing activity. It's good for your mental health, it's good for your physical well-being, it's good socially, and that's where swimming pools are so important as a hub for the communities. So we've got a lot going for us, and nobody's saying these things are bad and that we shouldn't continue to have them. It's just the competing demands and pressure that are there in terms of what local authorities and leisure trusts can do, and the ever increasing costs and competing demands, across society. But I do believe if we don't continue to support and invest in swimming pools, we will see the negative impacts on health. We will see people with more and more mental health issues. We'll see obesity getting worse and worse. We're not going to solve that through swimming and sport, but we can contribute towards it. And if you don't have these places, if you don't have people that are teaching swimming, if you don't have coaches coaching it, and clubs that are able to offer people opportunities as well as community programs, then you're not going to have, you're going to have a much worsening health position. So we've got a role and a bigger contribution to make to that, and we have to keep leaning into that, as well as giving the access and creating the space for the clubs and communities to get the access to the pools and get them open and get them used.
I think sometimes it can be difficult to measure progress and things when there's so much going on, and how much do we influence as Scottish Women, how much is different partners and things. But from your perspective coming in into this role as CEO, what would you kind of hope the landscape would look like in maybe 3 or 4 years time with you at the helm, and what would kind of maybe ways of measuring that be, and how would you look at maybe it in a positive light in that kind of period of time?
I think the success piece, we're heavily campaigning at the moment around a Learn to Swim entitlement as part of the curriculum. We were at the Labour Party conference. We're going to all the conferences because we want to get cross-party engagement and commitment here, but the Labour Party have committed, if they got to power in Scotland, to making primary 5 swimming lessons compulsory. That for me is something we have to continue to lobby for. That was a thing back in my childhood where you just automatically got swimming lessons. We need to give everybody equal access to that. That in turn will then help with getting more people engaging in club swimming or other swimming sports. Getting more people engaged if we can get that entitlement across the line. I also think there's incredible opportunities just around the way society's shifted a bit more open water. Swimming wasn't a thing when I learned to swim. Open water swimming was when you went with your mates down to the canal and heaven forbid went in. But that was about as far as it got, whereas now it's more organised, more structured. There's more wild swimming, there's more accessible places to swim. Technology's moved on, you've got wetsuits and better goggles and better equipment. So but alongside that, the real safety messaging is really important. People are more inclined to go to water spaces. We need to make sure they're equipped with the right skills and understand the safety requirements of it. But I also think there's a massive opportunity around masters swimming and older adult swimming. That it certainly is more prevalent than it was before, and I think they're areas where we can maximise some of that opportunity, which doesn't all necessarily put a huge strain on pool capacity, because there's always going to be the demand, right, for early morning access or early evening access. But what can we do outside of those times from a wider community benefit perspective, and can we encourage more older adults to come back to swimming? Because most people of an age will have learned to swim at some point or had the opportunity to do it. They might not all be able to swim, but can they be safe in and around water, and can we get them back through masters or open water or wild swimming and make it safe and inclusive for everybody? I think they're great opportunities, and at the same time I think a good entitled Learn to Swim programme would benefit our clubs more widely, because more children would just be confident and competent around water at an earlier age, and if we can transition some of them into club spaces, then that makes the clubs more sustainable, and that benefits up the way into our performance development programmes and right into our high performance athletes, and hopefully we have more Stephen Clegg's and Tony Shaw's and Duncan Scott's, because you can only do that if you get the opportunities in your local pools.
That pathway, right. Brilliant. I think that's a really nice way to end it, John. Nice kind of full circle, as I think the whole podcast has been, you speaking about earlier your own journey. But thanks very much for coming on, and hopefully we'll get you on again for a bit of a catch up at some point, maybe later in the year. But thanks, John.
Good to do that. Thanks again.
Thanks again for listening to the podcast, and hopefully you enjoyed the conversation with John. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or if you watch and listen on YouTube, please leave us a like and a comment. Until next time, thank you very much.